On this episode of the 10 Code Podcast, we talk 911 protocol. What number should I call? Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Public Safety Information Officer Larry Flowers. Today's guests include Murfreesboro Emergency Communications Director Seth Russell, Communications Supervisor Tiffany Matthews, and Communication Training Officer Ashley Dybert. Thank each and every one of you for joining us today.
Thank you, Larry.
Typically, when you dial 911 in an emergency, you expect to get someone soon. But if there's not an emergency, 911 may not be the best number to call. So let's talk about why 911 education and outreach is important. Seth, we'll begin with you.
Thank you, Larry. The 911 service exists to help citizens in emergency. However, some citizens might be hesitant to call 911 due to thinking the call is unwarranted. And that can cause some potential delays in response. So when the citizen thinks it's unwarranted or unneeded. So this could be based on misjudging the situation or underestimating the situation or not heeding or understanding the symptoms of a medical emergency. So it's very important that citizens don't hesitate to dial 911, and if they think there's an emergency, to call 911. So we'll also talk a little bit about when to call the non-emergency line and some other lines during this podcast.
And Tiffany, when should citizens actually call 911?
Anytime you have an actual medical emergency where you need an ambulance, any fire emergencies, if you have a house fire, if you're driving down the street and you see heavy smoke in an area, of course, call 911. Anytime you witness a crime in progress, if you see someone breaking into a car, any type of property, certainly give us a call on 911. Anytime there is a potential for a threat to life or property, give us a call on 911.
We know those calls are kind of stressful. When people call in, they want help and they want it fast. But Ashley, let me ask you this one. What do you say when you call for help, and why is that important?
The best information to give would be where the help is needed. That way we know where to send officers to go or send fire and medical. We also need to know an idea of what is going on, what's happened that made you feel the need to call or given you the need to give us a call. We're going to ask you your name and your phone number. That way, if the line does get disconnected, we can give you a call back and we know who we're speaking to. We're also going to ask you a series of questions that are revolving around the situation that you are dealing with. Just answer those questions to the best of your ability. That way we can give you every resource that we have access to.
And that's kind of difficult. I know in those stressful situations, dispatchers are sort of like that voice of calm. You're each one of you talk in a manner that you're able to get that information out of them. So that's important, isn't it?
Yes, that is very important. Just try to answer our questions as we ask them.
When someone calls for help, what else is important and why?
So it's very important to remain calm. That way you're able to speak to us clearly and we can understand you, to be able to give you every resource that we can. We also want you to use your words, speak legibly, do your best to remain calm. Don't try to yell. Just try to pull it together enough for us to get the answer to the question. Also, the best thing to do is just to follow any instructions that we give you. If we ask you, hey, can you get separated from this person or get away from that noise? That way we can better understand you. If you are able to, just go ahead and do that. Stay on the line with us. Don't hang up on us if at all possible. And just stay by the phone until help arrives. If you have to set the phone down, say you're in a situation where you can't stay on the line talking to us, if you have to, and we'll instruct you. If you have to, set the phone down, but leave the line open. That way we can hear what's going on.
Now, we know that dialing 911 in an emergency is important, but we also have a public safety non-emergency line, Tiffany, 615-893-1311. When should citizens call that number?
That number should be dialed anytime you have a situation where a response is needed, but it's not one of those potential life-threatening situations. So those could be noise complaints, if your vehicle was broken into overnight and you need to report, any minor traffic accidents where there's no injuries, anything where it's not an immediate response, but you need a report. That's the time when you would use that non-emergency number.
Now, when it comes to technology used to locate callers, what's the difference between 911 and non-emergency?
So the difference between 911 and non-emergency is going to be when you dial 911, we get what's called a phase 1 or a phase 2 location, which is going to give us an idea of where you're at, regardless of if you're able to tell us or not. If you call on non-emergency, we do not get that location information, and we have to rely on you to be able to give us the address of where you're at or an intersection. We also have several other resources that we can pull from to get your location if you dial 911. We have Rapid SOS, which works very similar to the phase 2 location. It also kind of works like how the DoorDash apps work. It'll give us a ping of your location, and it updates more frequently, and we don't have to command it to update. So it will keep us updated with where you're at. Of course, there's always the What 3 Words app that we can use if you're in a more rural area or if you're in the trails. We can use that to pinpoint where you're at. And with Rapid SOS, it automatically gives us the 3 words to be able to track where you are calling from. So if they get on scene, they can just type in those words and go to where you are.
And that's important too. I think we've had several situations. A situation at Barfield Park where two teenagers they got lost on the trail. Night is coming, and they had that What 3 Words app, and that was important in locating them, right?
It was very important. As soon as the responders got there, they were asking for the code. That way they could go to where they were, because the description that we were getting was not accurate enough to be able to get them exactly to where they were.
And Seth, when should a citizen call the police or the fire administration lines? Just lines right to the police department or the fire department.
Yeah, and that's very important to 911 outreach. So we've talked about 911 and non-emergency. The police department has their own admin line. It's 615-849-2-MPD, and the fire department also has one. It's 615-893-1422, and those are really important for any sort of follow-up administrative related calls on the PD side, on the police department side, stuff like requesting a record request or requesting an open records 911 audio if you're involved in the involved party, getting hold of the detective division or community relations or human resources. That really helps us offload those admin calls within the Emergency Communications Center to be handled by the other divisions of the police department. And also the fire department has the same setup. They have different divisions like the Community Risk Reduction Division when it comes to fire alarms and whatnot. So you can call those admin numbers and get direct access to those divisions without tying up 911 and non-emergency resources.
And we know, like in a storm sometimes, Tiffany, if your lights go out, if your water is not on, people tend to call 911. Have you found that to be the case?
They do.
So when is it appropriate? First of all, it's not appropriate to call 911 in those situations. So who should they call?
Well, I will note, it is not appropriate to call 911, but if you are on oxygen, certainly call us.
Okay.
Because we can get you help with that. But otherwise, you can always go direct with the Middle Tennessee Electric phone numbers on their website. They have life support numbers, outage numbers for those. I think they're going to be linked on the website for people to have access to those. I believe the outage line is 877-777-9111. So they can certainly call that if there's an outage. There's Murfreesboro Solid and Waste Department. We get calls for them sometimes, so that's another resource. A lot of times people will call the police department when they want to know what their court date is, but we don't have access to that. So city court, general sessions court, those are all available online, the city's website, the county's website. If you have questions about your driver's license, it's the DMV. If you have questions about your vehicle registration, that's the county clerk's office. So we do get a lot of those calls, and we'll just direct them to the correct department. But those are available on the city websites, county websites. You can find all of those contacts.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's the most outrageous call for service that's not 911 that was not totally related to emergency communications?
Ooh, I did have one not that long ago. She was very upset with Sonic because she couldn't get her cheese sticks. So it is not a police matter. We do get those calls. I mean, it's just, I did have a lady call one time because she had a skunk in her yard, and didn't that mean something? I'm not sure what she meant by that, but a sign, I don't know.
So that's why we're talking, what number should I call?
Yes.
Okay, Seth, are there any online means to submit traffic complaints or request traffic reports? Because I understand, the dispatch center may get calls about how can I get a traffic report?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything in progress that's any life-threatening or threat to personnel and property, definitely call 911 or non-emergency, depending on the situation. Recently, the police department does have a online traffic complaint form to fill out, and that goes directly to the traffic division section. It does not generate immediate police response. It's more for addressing traffic trends or hot issues around the city that they could plan to allocate traffic units to observe or address the situation. So it is monitored during business hours, and there's follow-up phone calls to the individual probably within 24 hours or so, but it does not generate immediate traffic response for anything in progress. But it does help us cut down on calls like over the weekend there was someone speeding down my street, but it's 2 days old. That those issues are captured within that traffic complaint online, and again they look for trends and kind of best resource their traffic units. So.
Right. And that's a good resource we were able to put on the website.
Absolutely.
There is a tab on the police web homepage that says traffic complaints. So citizens just need to simply click on that, and they can voice their concerns there.
Absolutely. And the other piece is usually with traffic, there's a lot of traffic accidents, and when the officer responds and gives the report number, generally it's 7 days by the time that report's ready to pick up, and we get a lot of citizens calling in the Emergency Communications Center for that report. They preferred to help us use our resources more efficiently, either call the police department administrative line and talk to the records section, or you can get online at the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security website and request a traffic accident report anywhere in the state from any law enforcement agency, as long as it's 7 days after it occurred.
Sure. And we've made it easy. They can simply click on our online traffic tab on our webpage, and they can get to that state website to request that report online. Also, on our webpage is a host of information about emergency communications. www.murfreesborotn.gov/1781/police will get you to the police page.
We are a division within the police department, so you click on division, emergency communications, and there's a whole page dedicated for 911 education and also what number to call, and we're kind of on a regular basis updating that with resources. So resources on the 911 education page is kind of what do teens need to know, what do parents need to know, what does everyone need to know. There's information about tips on what to know when calling 911, like we discussed today. There's also some other Spanish resources on there with other languages, and also we are in the process of updating that with some of the numbers that we talked about today with electric department and other department numbers. So very good resource, and if there's anyone desires to get it. To have someone come to their school or their place of work for any community outreach. We do have the community outreach resources with the MPD, and we do, and the fire department, and we do work alongside with them.
And just want to give each one of you an opportunity just to give a wrap up about 911 protocol, anything in particular you wanted to add.
I'll start with that. We are the busiest 911 center, emergency communication center in the county. So we look at every way that we can reduce that any sort of admin business type calls off our center. and direct them to the appropriate resource, because that just gives that resource and get to that citizen to the right place quicker. So that's the important of the admin line. Also know when to call 911 in non-emergency.
You had mentioned the busiest communication center in the county. How many calls for service do you normally get a year?
Overall, we take about 250,000 calls of those. Out of that is about 60,000 911, and the rest is non-emergency, inbound, outbound. Over the last few years, with technology advancements, getting the admin line up and going with the police department and some other internal efficiencies that we improved upon, and outreach, like stuff like this, we've shaved off about 60,000 admin calls and diverted those to kind of where they need to go.
Sure. And Tiffany and Ashley, just want to give you an opportunity just to wrap things up.
I just want people to be aware of like when to call 911, when to call non-emergency, but also not to be afraid to call us if they're not sure. And also understand that it seems like a lot of questions that we're asking, but that's really to help you get the best response possible. And just because we're asking those questions doesn't mean that your response is delayed at all.
Sure.
Yep. And that's exactly what I was going to go with. Anytime we're asking you any questions, it's not going to slow down the response time. A lot of the times whenever we're asking those questions, especially if it's medical related, we've already got somebody that's en route there. Me asking you a question and trying to get better information and more accurate information for those responding units, that's simply all I'm doing. I'm giving them more information. That way they have a better idea of what they're going to. That way they can prepare.
We really appreciate all you do, the first responders, and sometimes your efforts go unnoticed, but we really appreciate each and everything you guys do to help the city of Murfreesboro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been discussing 911 protocols. What number should I call? Thank each of you for joining us once again. The Public Safety Podcast originates from the Murfreesboro Police Department headquarters. Thanks for listening via Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Audible, and Google Podcast. You can also watch the podcast online on YouTube. The Public Safety Podcast is produced by Michael Nevels with assistance today from Marcus Delaney. For more information on public safety and the fast-growing city of Murfreesboro, you can visit our website, www.murfreesborotn.gov. Until next time, I'm Larry Flowers. Have a great day, everyone.